What's up, everyone, and welcome to the fourth episode of From the Lions Cove. I'm your host, Marcelo, aka Cello, and I have a special guest with me, my former high school basketball coach, Johnnie Anselmo.
What's up, Marcelo? Thank you for having me.
Johnnie,
appreciate the opportunity.
It is a pleasure having you on this show, but let me give a proper introduction to Johnnie. So, he was a former coach for Mayfield High School and Orange High School. He's a certified referee by Northeast Umpires Association. He's called over 1,000 games, which is crazy. And he led the 2017-2018 Mayfield Wildcats to a 20-2 record, which is honestly probably the best record in school history, even though it wasn't counted. But definitely the best record. Honestly, one of the best coaches I've ever had. So yeah, it's great having you on the podcast, and I'm very excited to talk some basketball and life today, Coach.
I'm looking forward to it. It'll be fun.
Oh yeah, it's gonna be.
And
awesome.
By the way, that record counts to a lot of people.
Yeah,
we remember. That's all that matters.
Right, exactly. So my first question is, what inspired you to become a basketball coach, and how did your journey ultimately begin?
So my journey began. It's actually funny. So there's a rec league that was played in the field house at Mayfield High School called the MBA. That's what they called it. The Mayfield.
Right.
You remember the MBA?
Oh yeah.
It's just a rec league that plays on Saturdays once a week, practices once a week. So it wasn't a lot of practice time. You maybe got to play 6 to 8 games throughout the winter. That's how it started. I was like, you know what, let's give it a shot in this MBA, this rec league. I know they were I knew the guy that ran it, Sean. And it was just a volunteer job. It wasn't for any money or anything. And I'm like, I'm really into the sport of basketball. I was, throughout my high school career, I went to all the varsity games and, watched how the coaches when I was in high school were doing things, and was like, man, it'd be cool if I could do some of my own things from the coaching aspect. So I was like, let me start kind of at the bottom of the totem pole with the rec league and get my feet wet with coaching. And, I started in the NBA with my buddy Nick. You know Nick very well.
Of course.
So he's the assistant varsity coach at University School now. He does great things over there at the home of the Preppers. But so we started in the NBA a couple years, and I remember getting to the championship in the first couple years, and it's been so long I don't even remember if I won or not. But we had a lot of success in the practices. I wish we had more practice time.
Yeah.
Because practice is so key. But so I started in the NBA, and then in the winter of 2016, 2017, I believe, I was out of high school, obviously, and Coach Nemzura was the coach at Mayfield,
right?
The varsity coach. Coach Bandera, who was the freshman coach for the longest time, stepped down. I think he got the head coaching position for football, so that took a lot of his time away.
Okay.
So I'm like, this is a cool opportunity to see if I can go for this, and go up, because the MBA, the rec league that I did was 7th and 8th grade. So the freshman coach opened up at Mayfield. So Joe Hayes, who was the teacher there, he technically was the head coach because he works for the school. They kind of get the precedence there.
Right.
But so I was kind of like his co-coach, if you will. And me and him, we started the year before you. You were in 8th grade at the time, which was my first year. So that's how it all began. And then I did 3 years at Mayfield. Ross Bandera ended up coming back the next year, my second year.
Right.
I got to work 1 with Joe, 2 with Ross, and then I moved on to Orange. So that's kind of how it all just got started. Just was like, you know what, let me try this rec league and just see how this goes and just get my feet wet. If I didn't like it, I could always just stop,
Right.
So when I got the coaching job at Mayfield, I obviously stopped doing the rec thing. So that's how it kind of got all started.
Right. So obviously going back to the 2017-2018 Mayfield Wildcat season, I mean, we went 20-2 as freshmen, which is pretty impressive. I mean, the jump from 8th grade to 9th grade, totally different ball games. Speed was definitely much faster.
Right.
More athletic kids. So it was awesome. So just talk a little bit about that season, because that season was just special for a lot of people.
What was your guys' record in 8th grade?
I think we won the conference. I think we lost 1 game.
Really?
To Kenston off of a buzzer beater.
Oh, Kenston. We got him back the next year, right?
Oh, yeah, of course.
So the 2017-18 class, your freshman year, That was my second year with Mayfield. Joe ended up, I think, going to the varsity staff, because Ross came back.
Right.
So it was my first year with Ross Bandera, who, I owe a lot of thanks to. I learned so much from him. He was coaching several years before I ever got started. So I learned a lot from him. I remember losing the first game by a lot at Nordonia.
By like 30.
Yeah, so that was a wake-up call. That was an eye-opener for me as a second-year coach. First game with Ross. Ross and I thought that we were ready, for that season, that we had prepared you guys for battle. Obviously, that wasn't the case. So we had our eyes, wide open after that game. Like, okay, we did not, go through that month of practice prior to the first game. We didn't go hard enough. We didn't do everything, we didn't do things well enough, crisp enough, hard enough in practice. Didn't push you guys to get ready. The game plan was bad. So we went back to the drawing board, and I remember, we only lost 2 games that year, like you said, 20-2,
yeah.
right? It was like so weird because it was the first game of the season and then the last, wasn't it? No, it wasn't.
It was like towards like I think it was towards the Christmas, because those were 2 out of conference games.
Right. Brecksville, maybe?
Yeah, it was Brecksville and Nordonia.
It was right around Christmas. So 2 non-conference games. So looking back on that season, I'm very proud of our conference record. Obviously, there was 8 teams in the conference, 7 other than Mayfield. So we went 14-0. You played them twice. So that 14-0 conference record is definitely something that I value a lot. Because that's the teams that you want to beat, the teams that you're, your rivals, so to speak, not a Brunswick or a Nordonia who only play once a year. So the conference record is something that I look back at and I'm very proud of. Another thing that I look back on from that year was some of the practices would get a little out of hand because a lot of your teammates, classmates, were a bunch of goofballs.
Yeah.
So, but I learned a lot from that year. Like I said, working with Ross. He kind of gave me the X's and O's type of, and he kind of just dealt with like a lot of the more off the court stuff. But we put our brains together a lot about a lot of the X's and O's, the plays. He kind of had me be the offensive coordinator, if you will, using a football reference. What offense should we run? What play should we run based on out of bounds? It wasn't all me. I'm not going to take all the credit, but I don't want to because Ross is a hell of a coach. But so that season was a lot of fun, and I remember we had such good crowds for that game.
Great crowds.
It's actually funny. Like when our game would end, it would kind of clear out a little bit for the JV game,
right?
And then more students would come for the varsity. But man, we had a heck of a run, man, and I think the most signature wins of that season were the 2 brush ones, especially the brush at home, because we had beat them the first meeting there, so you knew they had that second meeting circled, like we're going to get them back, and we were able to beat that team twice. You know the saying, it's hard to beat a team twice. So to be able to beat both of our conference, or all 7 of our conference opponents twice, is probably the most proud thing of that season for that year.
Yeah, and also too, even like throughout travel basketball, we've played against the same kids ever since we were in like the 3rd grade. So like obviously they had like their group. I know Madison had like 2 solid guys. I remember Brush, they kind of lost some players, but they also had a few stars there.
Mm-hmm.
And then like Chardon had a great group. Riverside was always tough. So like it was just like you got to see like other people get better, and it made you want to work harder and like compete more.
I remember that year I believe we held 15 players, right? So the playing time aspect of it was very difficult because it's hard to get a lot of the kids in when you have 15 rostered players. Ross and I did the best we could there, but we had our main guys. Obviously, you were a part of that. I look back now, I actually just remembered, because that Brunswick loss, which was the last loss of our season, was in 2017, and we actually went undefeated in the calendar year of 2018. So that was cool not to lose after the new year.
Yeah.
That was something really cool about that season. So to come back from Brunswick, the calendar flips after winter break. We don't lose the end of the season. That was really cool. So that was a really fun year. Obviously, probably my most fun I have. Winning is a lot of fun. It cures a lot of things.
Oh, yeah, of course.
So it can kind of just makes you feel some type of way that you're out there, doing the right things and making an impact on kids. And it just lifts the morale, obviously. So.
Oh, yeah. And also, too, we just had a great team chemistry. And I feel like you and Ross as, like, coaches, like, you guys really just, focus on that team chemistry and playing as a team, which is key for sure, especially if you want to win games.
Right. When all those kids that you were playing against one another all those years, as you guys get older, you guys improve, right? So it's even harder as the years go on to beat the same guys the same teams over and over. So you guys did such a good job. In 8th grade, you said you lost 1 game, 9th grade, 2 games. So, it's even harder to come back the next year as 9th graders and beat those same teams. So that's something that, your class should be super proud of. So I'm glad I was be able to part of that. But,
yeah, no, that was awesome. It's really something that I will never forget. All right, so what do you believe were the most important lessons that you aim to instill in your players both on and off the court?
Well, definitely self-belief, self-confidence, believing in yourself, because I think that the number one thing that coaches need to instill into players is, the confidence and belief that you have your set of goals, right? That you set out for yourself. So my job as a coach, not only to coach the game, and all the plays and all that, the X's and O's stuff, but to get you to believe that the goals that you have written down or thought of in your head and stored in your brain, that you can accomplish and achieve those. Because I can believe in you or any player for that matter as much. That doesn't matter. It's ultimately up. You're on the court, not me, right? So I have to be able to get you to be able to believe that you can achieve and accomplish what you set out for, your goals. It's like, so if you, before freshman year as a 9th grader on Mayfield, were like, okay, these are my goals for this year. My job is to not only coach the game, but that's only half the battle. The other half is to get you to believe that you can achieve those, right? You have to believe in yourself, have confidence when you go out there and play, because players that go out and are timid, not confident, scared to shoot, not able to play with the freedom that you need to be play with to be successful. So that's like the number one thing. The lesson that I aim to instill, it is self-belief, confidence, and the ability to get you or any player to believe that they can achieve their goals. So because that can just completely change the mindset of a player. Is like, okay, like I know my coach believes in me, but do I believe in myself that I can do this? Right? That's like the main number one thing. So that's what I tried. When you made a mistake, it's not, yell at you like you're in the military. It's like yell at you like it's the end of the world, right? Like I've never really been an advocate of coaches who are like scream, scream, scream all the time. And like demean, right? Degrade. I'm always trying to find, the kind of like the happy medium of, okay, I need to get on my players because they're not either obeying rules, listening, not running the play right, all that stuff. But also saying, hey, it's okay. Everyone makes mistakes. Go out there and hey, you can do better next time. You can learn from this. There's a bunch of, there's a lot of people who say a loss isn't something to sulk about. It's a lesson. A loss is a lesson, right? So being able to get your players to believe that not every loss is the end of the world, right? Not every mistake is the end of the world. You don't, just because you turn the ball over doesn't mean you're going to get benched. That some players have that be like, oh my God, I can't make a mistake, right? Like my coach is going to take me out. He's going to scream at me till the freaking end of dawn, right? So like being able to just uplift instead of demean, So that was something that I learned throughout my years is the proper way to get the most potential and get the best out of your players is to uplift them as much as possible. Now, there's times where you need to really get out a player if he's really just being a clown,
right?
or not, making the same mistake 10 times in a row.
Yeah,
that's where you can get really frustrated as a coach. But trying to find that discipline and just kind of like that balance, I guess, of uplifting, but also putting your foot down and saying I'm not going to accept some of this shenanigans.
Right.
Sometimes that happens when you deal with 14, 15-year-old kids. You're going to have shenanigans. So when you find that balance as a coach, that can really help the player and just the team in general. So I would say that self-belief, self-confidence, and that balance between yelling at a player or demean. You don't really want to demean them because then you can lose confidence. It's
right.
like, oh, it's my. It's almost like you're rubbing salt on a wound, right?
Yeah.
You're already upset yourself because you turned the ball over or you ran the play wrong or whatever, right? So if I go and yell at you for 20 minutes about it, does that make anything really that much better? It's no. Hey, it's okay. A lot of the times in practice, if something that would happen that would be incorrect or a mistake of some sort, I would just take the player out real quick, talk to him. Raise my voice, just be like, hey, just normal man-to-man talk, and just be like, all right, you got that? And he'd be like, yes, coach. Okay, go back right up. You know what I mean? It's not stop practice, yell at the whole team. Just pull you off to the side, say my few things. Try to, like I said, find that balance between uplifting but not demeaning, and throw you back out there so you hopefully can learn better. So I think that answers your question.
Yeah, and also too, kind of going back to the confidence point. I remember being in 7th and 8th grade playing middle school basketball, and I was one of those kids who had a lot of potential. I didn't work as hard, for sure, and there was a lot of potential, and I was afraid to shoot the ball a lot, even though eventually my role did become to score the ball a lot.
Right.
But what you said was right on the money. You instilled confidence in me to become a scorer and also to have that freedom. Whereas in 7th and 8th grade, I was so afraid to shoot the ball or make a mistake or force a turnover. Whereas that would just haunt me. And I was able to play with that freedom, which definitely helped throughout my high school basketball journey. Just the way I looked at the game. I looked at the game differently, hey, you have to score, you have to do this in order for you to help out your team.
Right.
So that's something
when you play more freely instead of have to almost it's mandatory or a requirement.
Yeah.
That completely just opens up your game. And instead of thinking of the negative of what you could potentially do, you're thinking, okay, you just think more positively, right?
Right.
If you shoot the ball. Or as you're about to shoot, you're like, oh God, if I miss this, what's going to happen? That's no way to play or think, when you shoot the ball. It's hey, right. I can make this. Okay, I did miss. Guess what? I'm going to make the next one.
Right.
And that's the uplifting and that's the confidence that I try to instill. So.
Right. So reflecting on your time coaching my class, what were some of the most memorable moments or games for you that you'll never forget?
I kind of said this in the first question. So just going back to that, it was definitely the Brush home game because that was huge for us because Brush was probably our biggest rival.
Yeah.
So beating them twice, and the second meeting was at Mayfield. So you knew they would come. That Brush team was just hungry for revenge.
Oh yeah. From
us beating them in the first meeting at their place. Like I said, the conference 14-0 record was very memorable. Even the first loss against Nordonia, it sticks with me. Still to this day. Really? We're how many years down the road?
Yeah.
That we're
7 years ago.
Yeah, I know. That still sticks with me because it was so eye-opening just being damn, they just kicked our ass.
Yeah.
And I thought, we had you guys ready. We were ready we could beat anyone.
Yeah.
that was a humbling experience. We were coming off like a decent year the previous year, and I got, I learned a lot in that first off season.
Yeah.
So when you were an eighth grader going into ninth grader, so that was my first year and the second year. You learn a lot from your first year. You learn a lot from the first time you do anything to the second time compared to first, right? Like literally any aspect in life. So
true.
That first year, I reflected back that first off season, that first summer, and then we went into the next summer. Ross came back. That was your ninth grade year. So I learned a lot, and I was like, okay, I'm not going to make the same mistakes I did as my first year, and we're going to do this better. We're going to do this differently, all that stuff. And then you lose by 40, and you're like, maybe, like, I don't even know where to go right now, right? Like, I thought I was ready. So that was memorable, just more of a dubious memory. But man, what else? Do you remember any specific games? Maybe I'm not coming up with.
Yeah, actually.
Let me ask you the same question. What was memorable for you? Because they're all like, it was so long ago.
So I would say like the first ever home game in high school. Like that was probably.
Was that the North game?
Yeah, that was.
Now I remember that. Now that you say that.
That was one of like that was something that I'll never forget because my cousin was leaving for the Navy like the next day, and the game before we played Bedford Heights. And
I remember the Bedford, yeah.
And he came to my game. I think that was one of like my poor shooting nights. I think I had like 6 points maybe, and I was like, and I remember
the Bedford or the North game.
Bedford.
Okay.
So I texted my cousin. I was like, hey, like you have to come to like the next game. Like like I promise you it'll be like 10 times better. Like first home game. Like it's gonna be awesome. And then that was the night. My first high school home game. I scored 20 points. Like the day before he was leaving, so that was something that
that's definitely sticks with you.
And like I like prior to that, I mean, I think I scored 33 in an AAU game, but that was like that was like the game that was like that kind of changed like everything for me. Just like as a player, just being like a kid that had no confidence, kid who didn't really believe in himself to we had a packed crowd that game too.
Yeah.
So just
first Friday home game of the year, North rival.
And even for like a freshman game, there were still a ton of people there. So that was one thing
your classmates that weren't on the team were very supportive.
Oh yeah,
for us, and they were throughout your high school career as you guys became juniors and seniors. They always came to the games. I loved the support and the cheering that we got from and all the parents came as well. So that's another thing to answer your question. Was the support that we got from game to game, especially at home. The parents always came of all 15 players, even if their kid wasn't playing.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, even if he was more of an end-of-the-bench guy, the mom and dad were there still cheering on all the other kids that maybe did get the luxury to play. So that was really cool. What was the last home game?
Yes, yeah.
That's sick. It's like on the tip of my tongue.
Yeah, I was just going to talk about
opponent?
that. It was Hudson.
Oh my God.
So that game was awesome to me because we were neck and neck with them the whole game. Like
it was
like we thought we were going to pull away, but then they would come back. And then I remember there was like 8 seconds left, and it was tied. And I went to go get the ball, and one of the kids shoved me. The ref saw it. Foul. So I went to the free throw line, made 2 free throws. Then I think they either made a shot or they missed. But then a few of our teammates, I think Riley, he made 2 clutch free throws, and someone else made 2 clutch free throws. And that was like my favorite because that was a great way.
What a way to end the year.
It was just a great team win. Like we all just did our own role, our own job, and that was truly special. And it was like the last home game of the year.
And Hudson's always been a great program.
Awesome.
And they're always have for whatever, I don't know what's in the water over there down in Hudson, but they're always so big, man. And we're all these Italian kids that are a little bit smaller on the scale. So to beat we were a little undersized in that game, so we were able to just fight and scratch and claw that one. And I remember it's the memories coming back to me. I remember when we kind of either when you got fouled and made the shots, and we kind of we had that feeling I think we got this, And I remember Bandy was always so animated, and I was super animated, as you know, but Bandy wasn't as animated, but he broke out and like had this animated emotional episode, like, because like I said, it was the end of the year. We were going for 20 wins that day, right? So like that's 20-2. I mean, that's very hard to replicate. You know, I don't take that for granted whatsoever. But Ross like did this to the crowd, like get up and like stand for us. We just went 20 freaking and 2.
Yeah.
Like, come on, let's hear it. And like that it just gives me chills right now thinking about it. But I remember like Bandy, like he always did his signature fist pump. But when we kind of sealed that game, you know, with our free throws, maybe a turnover at the end or something, but he just look. I remember him looking at the crowd, and everyone just was like, they were going nuts for us, man. And I just, like I said, that's another memory that just sticks to me this day.
Yeah, same. It's always gonna hold a special place in my heart for sure.
Mm-hmm.
So obviously, you know, you left Mayfield and you went to Orange. So what was the coaching transition like, switching schools and basketball programs?
So I had 3 years under my belt at Mayfield, more of like kind of like an assistant or like co-coach, if you will.
Right.
And going back to how I got started with Coach Nick, who's at university now. Nick was the JV coach at Orange when I was at Mayfield. I think he was freshman to start there, then he moved up to JV. But when he moved up to JV, the freshman position was now open because of his promotion.
Right.
So he was like, hey, you know, I know Mayfield's your alma mater. You know, you love it there, whatever. You know all the kids, but what are your thoughts on coming on your own and taking over for me in the freshman job now that he was up to JV? And it definitely was a decision that I took a lot of time to mull over.
Yeah.
Because leaving your home, so to speak, is obviously very difficult. Gets me out of it was something that got me out of my comfort zone. I've never obviously coached at a different school. So I was so comfortable with all the surroundings, all the coaches that I was working under from varsity to JV, you know, to Ross. And so breaking out of my comfort zone was definitely something that I was like, wow, this is going to be a challenge. But, you know, it's always good to challenge yourself in life, and because you never know unless you do it, right?
Right,
so,
exactly.
Definitely a difficult decision, one that there was pros and cons to it. You know, it's hard to leave all the kids that you've coached, and because you want to see their careers through, right? And still help out in any way you can as you guys move up from 10th to 11th to 12th grade. But then I also saw an opportunity to go work with a guy who is a super smart basketball mind, a great coach, and one of my better friends at the time, and go work alongside him. And I thought that is an opportunity that just doesn't come along a lot in throughout life. So to be able to coach with one of your best friends who in the same program, we were going to be able to practice together and just coach together. And he would be on my bench, I would be on his. That's an opportunity that kind of outweighed a lot of the things about coaching at home and coaching at Mayfield. I'm like, I don't think I should pass this opportunity up. This might be the thing that makes me say yes to this. And I ended up pulling the trigger on it and signing the contract at Orange. And we had a really good year. I remember we started 3-3. A lot of the kids, were doubting. We lost. We had a non-conference game against Cleveland Heights at home, and we lost by a lot. Let's just say, almost like a Nordonia game from your year. So obviously, a lot of doubt creeps in your mind. Damn, we are not at that level.
Yeah.
But we ended up finishing 14 or 15-5 or something like that. Okay. So we ended up having a good year and had a lot of fun. Unfortunately, the pandemic hit after that, and that was kind of the end of it. But it's just that was the transition. The decision was difficult. Early on, I was like, dang, I miss all the kids, that I've been coaching the last couple of years. I miss the coaches that I've been working with. I miss working with Ross. Having that second guy or just that other coach was definitely a challenge. I've never been on my own. Right. So being the leader of 14 ninth graders instead of having a guy that can kind of help you out in practice during the games, dealing with parents, all that stuff. that definitely was a challenge early on. It wasn't all flying colors, throughout that year. Like everything was so wonderful all the time. There was a lot of days I came home like, God damn, I wish I was back at Mayfield with Coach Bandera. Should I not have done this? Like some second guessing, but I look back at it now and just was like, I'm glad I did it. I'm glad I took that challenge. I got to meet another batch of great kids from another school district. Got to work with Coach Nick, Coach Ashward.
Oh, yeah.
And they taught me things, that I still am thankful for to this day. So that was a difficult yet, it was a difficult transition, yet one I don't regret.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. So this is a question, or not really. It's not really a question, but this is like my favorite. So let's talk about the Orange High School summer runs, which in my opinion, I think were like the best open gyms I've ever been a part of. I mean, you had kids coming from like different high schools to this gym.
Right.
You had Orange there, you had Warrensville Heights, you had Brush, you had you had Mayfield. I mean, you had a bunch of kids just coming to this gym literally just to play 5-on-5
in the summer. Yeah.
In the summer. So yeah, let's just talk about that just experience. I mean, because that was an incredible summer.
So we would split Orange Gymnasium into 2 gyms. So we'd go kind of like this way instead of the full main court. And we would have 2 games going on simultaneously. This is kind of all credit to Ash, who had a lot of connections to Ash and Ward, the varsity coach at Orange at the time. So he would, invite a lot of the kids to come up and play. And Nick was like, hey, why don't you invite some of the kids from Mayfield that, I was close with and stuff.
Oh, yeah.
So that's how I was able to get you and Mike Favazzo and, who else would
G
would call
Luke.
Yep. So that was, those were good. So, like, we pretty much was like, all right, like, we're going to have a Mayfield team of 5, play like a Brush team of 5, and then, like, play like an Orange team of 5. And we would just go at it. And, like, I remember sometimes Ash would play and, like,
he would play.
And, like, he played college hoops at Youngstown State. He was he was a young guy, still in great shape, still a great player at the time. So he would just freaking pick on you guys sometimes. But yeah, those were fun, man. It was so intense. Like, it was almost like it was the freaking state tournament sometimes, right? Like, like you just didn't want to lose because, like, did we do like a king of the court style? Like, if you lost, you were off, and like no one wanted to leave the court. So like it was like do or die.
Yeah.
You wanted to win to stay on and bring on the next squad of 5 from whichever school is there.
Right.
And when you lost, it was just like, damn, I may not play for like another 2 or 3 games, right? So it's like so deflating, and you're like, ah. And it was intense, man. No referees or anything like that. It was just kind of like call your own fouls, and like some fouls like were not even called, right? So those were some good runs, man. I mean, like I said, credit to Ash. He kind of orchestrated and conducted and created that whole thing. So, but I'm glad that, he was like, hey, bring some of your kids that you used to coach at Mayfield, and we want a Mayfield squad up here. So I just grabbed 5 of you guys, and some kids wouldn't make it some days, but we mixed and matched and had a great time. But and sometimes when it was all over,
we would do drills.
We would do individual drills, and we would get the cones out. We would just do finishing drills, 3-point drills, one-on-one drills,
like just everything to really just like expand your game,
right? And improve your skills.
Yeah, and like that was awesome. I mean, the one drill I'll never forget. We did the in between the cones, one-on-one.
Mm-hmm.
You had like 3 dribbles, 4 dribbles. You have to make a move, try to get to the basket. I mean, like that
because those are game-like, right? Because if you get a fast break and it's one-on-one in the basket, it's you defender basket, like fine-tuning the moves that you have to make, the footwork, the English, which hand you go up with, can you pull off a Euro step? Can you do a spin move? Because you're going to need a kind of like a move to get a good shot on that. So, yeah, we practiced that a lot because it was very game-like. That's how we always tried to do it, in those individual drills, was everything that you can translate to the game. We try to replicate the game as much as you can in practice because, you you don't want to do things that and practice things that aren't really relative to the game because it's almost like pointless.
Right.
So
yeah, like
but those were some good times.
Oh yeah, and also too, this is one thing I'll never forget. I was thinking about this the other day. So I remember going into the first open gym run, and you brought like five kids from Mayfield. We were like, all right, like we'll see what this gym's like. Walk in, the music is just bumping, like and like this is when we played on the full court too.
Okay.
So like the main court, so we had everyone just like watching from like the stands. It was awesome, and I was like, wow, okay, like this is crazy. So I remember it was us versus Orange, and Coach Ward played on the Orange side.
Yeah.
So I'll never forget this. So they kicked our ass. Like they kicked our ass, and I'll never forget this because Aaron Zarbavel.
Yep, I remember him.
So he what's it called? He actually broke my ankle. Like my ankle's never been broken before.
Crossed you up.
He did kind of push off a little bit. I'm not gonna lie, but he still did break my ankles. He still did. So he broke my ankles and then hit like a step back three for the win. And I'll never forget. Coach Ward was like, "Man, like you Mayfield kids are soft." And I remember I walked.
That lit a fire, right?
And then I walked out of there. I was like, "Man, like that's not how it should have gone."
Right.
Then I remember every time I came back to that gym after that, I made sure like I would like cook them and like I know one thing too. I'll never forget. I think I had half of like the team's points. And it was for the win. And I remember I had like one of like the Orange kids guarding me. I did a tween like between the legs, step back three, went in, and I just turned to like the side. I was like you can't guard me. But yeah, it was awesome, and also like it just like fueled that fire, that really like competitiveness, and it just brought
those were so
that.
competitive, so intense. And there was so much pride and bragging rights on the line. Like again, it was the summer. It doesn't go towards your record, right? Like those like can sometimes be more memorable than a real game. But like I said, they were so competitive. Like no one wanted to lose. You know, nobody. No one wanted to have to go sit on the sideline and just wait till their next turn.
Yeah.
So man, those were crazy.
Yeah, when I'm
a lot of intensity.
Yeah, when I become a coach when I'm older, I'm definitely going to do that because that was awesome.